Hey, what's going on, everyone? Dan Wanis here with the Daily Fantasy Press. Before we get into the AT&T Byron Nelson Invitational, I want to just touch on last weekend's event, the Players' Championship. Every single year, it seems to be a very volatile tournament, and it's just the way that course is set up. Their greens are so fast. By the afternoons, they're dried out. It's like putting on glass, and the amount of water hazards around the course just presents an obstacle at any time throughout the 4 rounds for these guys. And we saw so many top 25 players in the world become victim to some of these holes. It's really tough to watch, especially when some of these guys have such a good round going and get caught up on one hole. And it's like hole 17. It's nothing difficult. But when the winds are up, there's a possibility. We saw it this week, a score from a hole in one all the way to 10 strokes on a simple par 3. So just touching on some of the guys we got right, and I'm not going to go over all of them, but the thing we've really been focusing on, and we've been picking really well, is the lower price guys for whatever reason. I feel like the last few weeks I've been nailing the punt plays, and my lineups, the high price studs I'm paying up for are either missing the cut or just barely sneaking in and not doing any damage over the weekend. So last week we had Kyle Stanley, Lucas Glover, Bernd Wiesberger, Cantlay. Those were kind of the guys in that lower tier price range that we nailed, and we've been on these guys most of the year, and I think something important to think about is if a guy doesn't pan out one week, don't give up on him, especially if you're watching the tournaments. If there was one hole they had that maybe had them miss the cut, you really have to look at their game overall. And if it was one hole, I tend to throw that out the window. These guys, they're not gonna have it every single weekend. But if their overall stats, like Kyle Stanley, the dude is just a stud by ranking of statistics, and he came through this week on a very tough course, and he strung together 4 very solid rounds. And it's like 2 guys this week that just crushed my lineups. I was overweight on Spieth, and then Tony Finau. I thought he lined up really well with the course. And those guys hurt some of my lineups that really had some legs outside of that. And it's just so frustrating when a guy like Jordan Spieth and even Rahm, when he missed the second cut. It's so frustrating when these top flight players are the ones holding your lineups back. So, but we're moving on to the AT&T Byron Nelson. It is held at the Four Seasons Resort at Las Colinas in Dallas, Texas. It's a par 70. It's not as long as courses we've been seeing lately. Comes in at 7,166 yards. And last year's champion was Sergio Garcia. Now, taking a look at the key stats in course. The course has Bermuda grass fairways and bent grass greens. It's a course that's got a lot of undulating greens, and it encourages players to use the slopes. And a lot of these slopes actually slope downward towards a pin. So they do have runoffs, and there's also very short, closely mown areas surrounding the putting surface. So you do have to keep your ball on the green. And this course also features extensive tree landscaping with the addition of creeks and ponds that come into play on quite a few holes. The 18th hole features a very unique water cascade that extends from the landing area all the way to the green. Both par fives on this course are fairly short. They come in at 542 yards and 546 yards. And the par fours are the ones that I would say are more difficult. Hole number 3 is the most difficult hole on the course. It measures at 528 yards. And on this hole, there were twice as many bogeys, double bogeys, and worse than birdies in 2016. And just one other note is four of the final five holes played over par last season really had to do with the amount of water hazards protecting the putting surfaces. So strokes gained approach, going to be really big this week. Some other key stats: strokes gained tee to green. We're really going to emphasize that this week. Total driving, scrambling, par 4 scoring, and proximity. And I really like par 4 scoring this week because of the difficulty. I think when you have easier par 5s, anybody can score on them. So I want to weight the par 4 scoring that's a little more difficult. Now moving on to weather and wind as we look at every week. So as of Monday evening, I'm recording this. Thursday, temps are going to be warm, high near 90 degrees, and there's a chance of thunderstorms later in the day. We'll have to keep an eye on that. And Friday, another chance of strong thunderstorms. Same with Saturday. And then Sunday looks like the weather conditions are going to be just fine. And then looking at wind, we're playing in Texas again. It's very common to have winds this time of the year, and this week it looks like we're going to be dealing with it again. So it seems like every tournament we've been playing in Texas, this has been a factor, and even some other tournaments in the last month. So we will keep an eye on this leading up to Thursday morning, but right now there really doesn't look to be much of an edge. And as we've seen the last few weeks, even a 5 to 10 mile per hour wind difference really has not impacted scores like what people have believed they possibly could. So we'll keep an eye on it and give updates on our Twitter as the week goes on. So looking at strokes gained tee to green, Dustin Johnson comes in first here on tour. He's priced up this week at $12,500. Sergio Garcia, he comes in second. He's priced at $11,000. And fourth, this is a guy you guys may not be as familiar with. Definitely a European tour player. Fabrizio Zanotti, priced in at $6,900. Next we have Tony Finau. He ranks 6th on tour in strokes gained tee to green, followed by Ryan Palmer, 8th, and then Jordan Spieth ranks 16th in strokes gained tee to green. Moving on to greens and regulation, DJ once again topped this category. The guy has just had an incredible season, and after his finish last week, I think he kind of went under the radar, got lost in the shuffle, barely made the cut once again, and didn't quite have the weekend he had 2 weekends ago, but still had a solid finish, top 25, and I think whenever DJ seems to be vastly priced up compared to the next guy behind him, he seems to garner lower ownership. I think people think they can't pay up that much for him when there's a $1,000 gap between him and the next price guy. So I'm going to touch on him in a bit for GPP strategy, but I really like DJ this week. Jordan Spieth, he ranks second, strokes gained tee to green. Tony Finau, once again, he is ranking fourth in greens and regulation. Sergio, he's tied fifth with Zanatti, and you guys are probably pretty surprised that Zanatti's up here in both these categories, but he's a guy I really like this week in GPPs and kind of just taken as a flyer because name recognition is not there with him. And then lastly, we have Martin Flores. He ranks seventh in greens and regulation. Now, looking at GPP plays of the week, I mentioned DJ already. And when he's priced up this high, I'd be very surprised if his ownership is much over 20% on the week. We'll have to see. He definitely could get talked up, and everybody feeling like DJ is a surefire bet this week, but he has 4 top 10 finishes here in Dallas. And with his form this year, I think he's a great GPP play. Next, Tony Finau, price at 9,200. He missed the cut last week at Players and definitely disappointed a lot of people, including myself. And I really try not to hold that recency bias against these guys. I mean, golf, it's high variance. He barely missed a cut. It's not like he went out there and just played awful. He's got a T10 and a T12 finish at the Four Seasons. As I mentioned earlier, he's ranked 6th in strokes gained tee to green, 4th in greens and regulation, and 7th in par 4 scoring. And then lastly, Sung Kang, priced at 7,400. He's priced up just a bit this week, and I feel like he is just waiting for his moment. He finished second at Shell Houston Open earlier this year in Texas, 11th at Heritage, and 6th at the Texas Open. And he checks a box and ranks top 50 in greens and regulation, strokes gained tee to green, birdie or better percentage, and par 4 scoring. So I think Sung Kang, he's such a consistent golfer, and he's having a great season. And I think he's a great GPP play this week. Moving on to 3 more tournament plays, we have Johnny Vegas. This is a guy that missed a cut last week at the Players. He had a rough Thursday. He shot, I believe it was a 78 or 79, and came back firing like a 69 on Friday. And he had just missed the cut. But this guy, he's a solid ball striker. He's from Texas. And I think because of the missed cut last week and because of that, he's going to be coming in at lower ownership, and he can do it. Like, he's a guy he's used to Texas wins, and he's having a decent season. So I like Johnny Vegas this week at 7,600. Next, we have Russell Henley, priced up at 8,300. Earlier this season, he won the Shell Houston Open, finished 11th at the Masters the week after, and then 26th at RBC, and 35th last week at the Players. Once again, another ball striker that can play in the wind. He's ranked top 25 in strokes gained, tee to green, greens in regulation, par 4 scoring, and birdie or better percentage. And he's been a guy we've been on all year. So I'm going to be going back to Russell Henley this week. And lastly, just to follow the theme here, another solid ball striker, Jason Duffner. He's priced up to 8,800. And I think at that price, people just are not going to gravitate towards him. That's a higher price tag than people are used to seeing. He's having a great season. He's won this event before, and he also has 2 top 10 finishes here in Dallas. and he ranks 7th in par 4 scoring and 26th in birdie or better percentage. So Duff is a guy I'm going to be on this week. Now moving on to punt plays of the week. It just seems to be like the category we're really hitting every week. And the first guy here, we have Jonathan Randolph at 6,700. And this guy's just been having a really solid month. His last 3 starts, he has finished 8th, 24th, and 27th. A name that's not as well known. A lot of the sharps are going to be on him this week, so I think he's reserved as, once again, a great tournament play. So I like Randolph this week. Next, we have Kevin Tway at 7,700. He's another guy that's been playing really well in the last month. He has 2 top 5 finishes at the Wells Fargo and Texas Open. So I like these guys that played well in Texas. And if the wind's going to be up, that's something to keep in mind. And I think his progression in the last month is really trending in the right direction. So I like Kevin Tway, another guy that doesn't have the name recognition, especially for the casual DFS players. And lastly, Billy Hurley, price at 6,900. He's had 2 top 25 finishes in his last 4 events. He is really making strides this year after a tragic loss of his father. And if you guys haven't checked that story out, he's got a Players Tribune written up on what happened with his father. It's a sad story, but it seems like he has really been playing some solid golf here the last 2 months. So I like where Billy Hurley's at, and at 6,900, I think he's got the upside here. So those are the 3 punt plays of the week. As always, thank you guys for listening to this. If you are not following us on Twitter, you can find us at Daily Fantasy Press. If this is your first time listening, if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, or those that have listened and not subscribed, if you do that, you will get notified once these videos are out. We try to get these out every Monday night. And lastly, follow us online, dailyfantasypress.com, and we will be releasing our article Tuesday with our write-up, our core plays of the week, our GPP plays, and touch on some guys I did not touch on in this video. And if you guys could give us a thumbs up, we really appreciate that. And leave any comments or questions you guys have. Just send us a message on Twitter, and we will get back to you. We love interacting with the players out there in the daily fantasy community. So once again, thank you guys for listening, and I wish you guys the best of luck this week.